Dustin Baker, VikesNow. We're going to the 10-3 edition heading into Week 15. But first, we're going to go through reaction, broad takeaways from the loss in Detroit. It was an entertaining game, so to speak. It kind of felt like when things got close that this would be the team would find a way to win, but I think the deficit got too large and the Lions were too upstart for it to matter. And didn't lose a one-score game, lost an 11-point game, but such is life. So let's go into the broad takeaways. All right, so after the Week 9 game in Washington, I got on this show, and based on the way that the Vikings flipped a switch in the fourth quarter, despite a referee running into the safety, I told you guys that that win gave me evidence that this team's got a little special sauce, and I expected them to grow thereafter, and it looked like they did after they beat the Bills on the road. And I came on this on both instances in both weeks, ultra excited and convinced that they have a Super Bowl pedigree, a Super Bowl DNA, because they're finding ways to win when it matters the most. Regrettably, I no longer believe that. The team has not improved since the Bills win, that crazy fourth quarter in overtime. They've gotten worse, and they're not bad. They're still 10-3, and they will reach the postseason, and they'll probably win a game there at US Bank Stadium. But I have personally redacted or disqualified my Super Bowl contendership, at least for the way that I see the team. Some of that might be downtrodden for some of you guys that think, hurrah, there's a will, there's a way. But I think with this 10-3 record, probably going to get the 2 or the 3 seed. I think the Vikings being legitimate Super Bowl contenders is something that you want to happen, not something that will happen. Because their defense just flat out isn't very good, and it's not getting better. At this time of the year, you want to start acting like the 49ers did yesterday and beat the piss out of the Buccaneers or the Eagles, who continue to dominate. At this point on the calendar, Super Bowl winning teams are getting better, historically. Now, I hope that I'm wrong, and this would be the one example where a team just did the thing and got in the playoffs and then got hot. That'd be great. We'll celebrate it. I will side by side this episode to that moment and talk about how wrong I was. I just don't see it right now. I'm going to talk about the defense in a minute, but in case I forget, I want to talk about how masterful, how good Kirk Cousins was yesterday, and how it didn't seem to matter. That's the odd part of a team sport that I believe, per the eye test, the way that Cousins was throwing the ball, that's probably the best that I've seen him play in a single game from start to finish, head to toe, since 2018. That's how crisp, how sharp he was on virtually every play. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 incompletions that were like, didn't hit him there, but that's bound to happen in football, even to Patrick Mahomes or Dan Marino. So incompletions need not disqualify Kirk's marvelous game, but that's where we're at. The quarterback has the best game of the season, bar none. 425 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, no fumbles, and they lost by 11. That is an indictment of how underwhelming the defense was yesterday, and in the fourth quarter, when it usually stands up based on the way that Ed Donatel has his philosophical approach, it really didn't. It didn't do much stiffening in the fourth quarter, and therefore the Vikings lost by 11. And that's where we stand at 10-3, starting to side-eye the 49ers, trying to figure out if they're going to catch the 2 seed, which they probably deserve, or if the Brock Purdy honeymoon will run out, which it probably will. We'll get there, and we'll find out in the next couple weeks. I've come to the conclusion on the defense, this is kind of number 3 broad takeaway, is the way that this is endorsed and embraced, this bend but don't break bullshit. If the Vikings defense is not forcing turnovers, the defense is flat out horrendous. It is not good. It ranks 32nd in yards allowed in general and 32nd in passing yards allowed. It is flat out a flimsy and bad defense if the turnovers are not piling in. There have been 3 games in 2022 where the Vikings haven't forced turnovers. The Cowboys, the Patriots, and the Lions. Thankfully, they played a pretty nifty game against New England and found a way to win regardless. But the way that I assume it's on the players, because those are the guys out there doing the thing, or maybe they're too old to be, a top 12 unit or whatever. But the limitations that it has are accelerated by a lack of turnovers. You can pretty much figure out if the Vikings are going to win a game with the way that this defense plays, whether or not it gets a turnover. If it gets a turnover or two, they're probably going to end up in the fourth quarter and win one of those suspense thrillers. If they don't, it'll be a lot like yesterday. And, of course, Dalvin Cook's fumble on the trick play didn't help because once you have that turnover, then you got to go get your own to make up for it, whether that's points on the boards or field position. So we didn't have to talk about this much in the past 3 months because the defense was always forcing turnovers. Well, on the road at the Lions, who are pretty scrappy and whippersnapping, the lack of turnovers forced proved to be the difference. So write that down, that if the Donatell defense, this current rendition, if it's not getting interceptions out the sky or it's not scraping balls, fumbles off the turf, they're going to lose. Plain and simple. And that's what happened yesterday. And I think going forward, we need to reevaluate how we talk about the Lions. They're now, 5-1 since a 1-6 start. All of the shit on Hard Knocks and HBO, all the rah fun stuff has finally come to fruition. So I think there's a very viable chance, especially if Aaron Rodgers retires here in about a month, that the Lions might hop right up there and contend with the Vikings, assuming the Vikings stay competitive in the coming years, because they've really built their trenches quite marvelously. Coach evidently is the real deal. Didn't feel like that. Halloween, it felt like they were about to fire the guy at 1-6. But I think that good news for them, the Lions have turned the page on being the Lions. And it's really the proof's in the pudding. Ever since the T.J. Hawkinson trade, for some godforsaken reason, they got really good, and they've won 5 out of 6 now. And the only game they lost was on Thanksgiving, when they probably would have beat a human team, other than Josh Allen and his final 45-second heroics on Turkey Day. So the Lions are no longer the Lions unless they suddenly regress here. The number 1 seed, I've talked about that for several weeks because 7-1 and then 8-2, it's probably dead. You now need the Eagles to lose 2 games. It doesn't look like they're going to lose to anybody. And so now the focus should be on retaining the 2 seed because the 49ers are right there nipping at the heels, only 1 game back. I'm not sure who would end up with the tiebreaker if they get to have the same record. I'm going to be cynical and assume it's the 49ers. But that is the supreme focus now because while the Vikings have shown they can win on the road, you want the raucous nature of a home crowd for 1 playoff game for sure. And if they keep the 2 seed, it would be 2 playoff games, assuming that they win that first matchup against the Giants, Commanders, Seahawks, or Lions, who actually have a pretty favorable shot at getting in now. I don't think I'm going to bring up the number 1 seed chat anymore because they have like a 1% chance of getting that. It was fun while it lasted. Now the road to the Super Bowl would have to go through Philadelphia if Minnesota can even get out of the divisional round. And let's face it, I think that is my new ceiling. I tweeted this yesterday after the game that I do firmly believe that no matter who shows up in the 6th or 7th seed, the Vikings will win their home playoff game on January blah, blah, blah. And then no matter where they play, at home, on the road, in the divisional round, this feels like a team that would lose that second game of the postseason. And regardless, it's Kevin O'Connell's first year, so unless they just lose the rest of the 4 remaining regular season games, it should be considered an unadulterated success. He's changed the culture. The team is winning. They're probably going to get the 2 or 3 seed and hopefully win a home playoff game. That is a fantabulous first year for a rookie coach. Now, it kind of all depends on how they look in that second playoff game because they just get battered. You'll have a sour taste in your mouth for several, 7-8 months. But all in all, this is a successful first season for a first-year head coach, so always keep that in mind. Winding down the show, Justin Jefferson's heroics cannot go unmentioned. Even the total bullshit blowing the play dead that disabled the touchdown, and I'm especially salty about that. because in my most expensive fantasy league, I was the 6th seed and I was playing the 7th seed. We have the same record, and whoever wins that game goes into the postseason. Well, guess what? I have Justin Jefferson, and I lost by 3 points. I knew as soon as they waved off that score, didn't even recognize that it was possible, that would be my undoing to get into the fantasy postseason, and it was. And that's the life of a Vikings fan, and it had to be a Vikings play. That would have happened in the Cowboys game or some other game, I would never even know about it. But it was front and center because it happened to Justin Jefferson. Who cares about my fantasy team? I'm talking about Justin Jefferson's heroics. He and Tyreek Hill, for 4 or 5 straight weeks now, have played hot potato back and forth for the receiving yards crown. And now Jefferson is plus 40. I think he's on pace for 1,952 receiving yards. So if he doesn't have one of those quiet games or, triple covered like the Lions did 2 months ago, he could hit that 2,000-yard mark, and I think he would even snag some MVP votes. If he wins the receiving yard crown, hits 2,000 yards, the Vikings are the 2 or 3 seed. He probably won't snatch it from Patrick Mahomes because it's such a quarterback award, but he would, I think. Cooper Kupp got 1 vote last year. I think Jefferson would probably get about 5 or so. We shall see. But he was tremendous yesterday. He is the lifeblood of the team, and his rip-roaring pace through 46 or 47 games now, it's just remarkable. The dude doesn't do things poorly. So he has to be called out as fantastic. And hopefully the Vikings can. One of the most important parts about this season, this is such an unsung aspect of Vikings football this year, is that Justin Jefferson is going to get a sniff of the playoffs. He's going to be in a home playoff game, hopefully play 1 or 2 after that. But consider this. If Kwesi Adofo-Mensah had taken the reins of the team and traded Kirk Cousins and drafted Desmond Ridder or some shit like that, there's a very real chance that Justin Jefferson would have played his entire rookie contract with losing Vikings football. But because Adofo-Mensah believes in that competitive rebuild philosophy, now Jefferson will get a taste of the postseason this year for sure, hopefully next year, and he would be more likely to re-sign with the Vikings with his ginormous next contract because the team has won while on his watch. There was a very real chance that we were staring at the first 4 or 5 years of his career doing 7-9, 8-9. A rebuild this year probably would have been 5-12. Next year you get better, you're 7-10, and you're trying to convince this Herculean talent, stay with us, baby, things are going to get better. I don't know that he would have bought into that speech, but now he knows that we do win around here. We're not the 5th winningest franchise in NFL history for nothing. Don't have a Super Bowl. Maybe you could help us get one, homie. He'll get a taste of the playoffs. Hopefully this year, well, for sure this year, and hopefully next year. That's important because you want the guy to stay. I don't know if he would have stuck around with a bunch of quadruple back-to-back losing seasons. And then finally, I want to run down Kevin O'Connell's head-scratching decisions because those were a thing of scrutiny yesterday during the game, after the game this morning. The first one, let's see, what was the first real strange? Oh, it was the trick play. First and goal from the 3, you're in the process of trading haymakers with the Lions. It feels like it's going to be one of those afternoons where 37-34 is the final score, some shit like that. And then you hand the ball to Dalvin Cook and orchestrate a trick play where Johnny Munt had dribbled out into the back of the end zone and was wide the hell open. I'm here to report I have no problem with that play call. The only thing that was wrong about it was that the Lions sniffed Cook out personally and he fumbled it. The transaction, ill-fated nature of it was on Cook. You shouldn't lambaste the play caller because it's a classic textbook example is if Cook does the thing and the Lions don't sniff it out and Cook jumps and tosses it to Johnny Munt, it's one of the coolest things that you've seen in Vikings football in quite some time because it was creative as hell. But it was snuffed out by a Detroit Lions defensive line that is creeping on a come-up. And therefore, we're like, oh, he should have ran it. When Kirk Cousins was playing so unbelievable, should have just thrown it to Hawkinson. It's all revisionist history. If that play worked, you would love it. And that's a lot of what coaching is if it works, great. If it doesn't, you're buffoonish. So no matter what they decide to do, run it in the middle of the line of scrimmage twice, throw it twice, or try the trick play, I have no qualms with it. The problem was Dalvin Cook, his accountability. He fumbled the ball. That ruined the play call, and the Vikings subsequently lost. It really felt in the moment that that was a dagger, and it turned out to be true. The second one is the 2-point conversion. Adam Thielen scored a 23-yard touchdown. I think it was on fourth down. It was third down. It was one of those two. And, you're doing your celebration in your living room thinking, all right, here we come. This is the Vikings that we know and love. They're going to find a way to win this thing in the fourth quarter. And then they went for two. And there was no good reason for it, at least in terms of the flow of the game. However, mathematically, if you follow any of Ben Baldwin's work, that is the correct call per the analytics, because whatever the percent is of the times that you're successful, then all you would need on the subsequent drive to win the game was a touchdown and an ordinary extra point that you would pray Greg Joseph would make. So here's the deal. When the Vikings fired Mike Zimmer, you were super on board with that. You were even excited because it represented a brand new era. And along came these guys, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell, that young, progressive, and embraced the analytics. Well, the analytics in this situation said O'Connell should go for two. It sucks because they didn't get it. If they would have got it, it's brilliant. So, everybody wants an analytics-focused regime until the analytics-focused regime starts doing analytics-focused things. That's what happened. They got the short end of the stick. If they try it next time, they'll probably get it, and O'Connell will be vindicated. So that one, if they would have kept it on par, kicked the extra point, fine by me. But they wanted the edge. They wanted to be a little tricky. That was kind of the theme of the afternoon, and I just don't think the guy should be utterly savaged for a 2-point conversion when you're wrapping your entire philosophy around this analytics approach, because sometimes it will work. Now, the final one, he does not get a pass on this. I don't know what the analytics say on onside kicks, but if they encourage you to go for an onside kick with 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, and I think there was a timeout for the Vikings, then they're wrong, or then I am completely misguided, because onside kicks do not work. In fact, when they do, for any team, it's breaking news. It's like, oh, did you see the Falcons got an onside kick? That hasn't happened in blah, blah, blah years. They used to be awesome. Folks used to recover those 20% of the time. 1 in 5 every onside kick before 2017 was recovered. Now, it's just moronic to even do it unless you are absolutely desperate with no other way to turn. There's only a 6% success rate in recovering those, and you have to hope that the other team, the way they're designed now, because they don't want guys smashing into each other to promote player safety, you just have to hope the other guy fumbles it. That's all there is to it, because if he is worth his salt, he's just going to grab the ball and the game is over. And that's pretty much what happened. And so any onside kick now that's considered elective, if it's not, a tricky little thing in the second quarter, I think is stupid. They don't work. It's a joke. They used to be fun. When I was a kid, onside kick, man, ooh, okay, I bet, let's see if they get it. And 1 out of 5 times they did. Now it's designed to be completely futile. Don't even bother. So that one, I'm sure, was analytics driven, and forgive me if that was the right move, but that one I was right there with the rest of you thinking, oh, great. And then exactly what you fear to happen happened. They got the onside kick. They got 20 more yards, and then Vadgley, or whatever his name is, hit the field goal, and bada bing, game over. So it was your worst fear confirmed. Why would you go for an onside kick when you? As all of the negative things that I've said about the defense on this show, and you've said about it to your pals, one thing it is good at is when the game's on the line, usually it finds a way to stand up. And in all likelihood, the Lions would have just been running it into the line of scrimmage to run the clock out, which meant the Vikings would have got the ball back with, a minute and probably 80 yards to go or something like that. Who knows? Jefferson had a touchdown that should have been a touchdown that was about that distance, so. All right, I'll leave you with this. 10-3 is not doomsday whatsoever. They were bound to lose again. Now, I firmly believe that they will win the next 2 games at home against the Colts and the Giants, and then we'll see how the chips fall against the Packers, because we have no idea if that'll be Rodgers or Love. The Bears could be on the Trevor Siemian or whoever they have now, or it could be Fields. We shall see. But I firmly expect the Vikings to win the next 2 games, but I have recalibrated my Super Bowl expectations. I do not think realistically that this team is good enough to win a Super Bowl, but I am completely inviting them to make me wrong because I want to be wrong. That's all I got. Be back tomorrow and Skol, baby.